Coach Eric Ramsay. We'll get started with a question from John.
You always like to talk about your team at the best. Was that your team at its best?
I think it was a funny game because I think in spells it was the team at its best, but I also feel like in spells it was the team at its worst. And yeah, for all the good play, the chances, the excitement, and the atmosphere, and it was a phenomenal night. I can't dispute that. I think the team will feel frustrated with elements of the performance. I think the opening stages of the game were frustrating for us, and I think the closing stages of the game to an extent were frustrating. So I'm keen at this stage to stay as level-headed around that as possible, because I feel like that was a game where we should have had full control, and there were moments where we didn't help ourselves. But I can't take anything away from the players because, as always, full engagement, discipline, aggression. You can only question some of the decision making at certain points, but I think in general it was a high level performance, and I think the scoreline reflected that, and I think the number of chances we had reflected that. So it was disappointing to not come away with a clean sheet, but I think in general there's loads to grab and take forward there, because it's in many ways it is the hallmark of why we're such a difficult team to play against.
During the week, you did mention that both you and San Jose had played 120 on Tuesday, and it helped with the balance. But as you're moving forward in the U.S. Open Cup, how much does it help to have 2 months now between this today and then the semifinal as you're going about your MLS campaign?
Yeah, I think so, and we've got 3 really nice stages to the season to look forward to now, and that's ignoring how the season finishes and hopefully what goes beyond the regular season. We've got this block of games now, which I always felt this 5-game block between the Leagues Cup was a really important block for us to show real intent at the top of the table and show steps forward in terms of performance and evolve as a team, and really keep pace up there. And I think at the moment we're able to sustain that. Now we've got the Open Cup to look forward to, and before that we've got the Leagues Cup, and I think a lot can change between now and then in terms of how the squad looks. And I think it's obviously it's a period where there's lots of movement, there's lots of moving parts in general, and I just want to make sure that we've got a really strong base going into that Leagues Cup tournament. And then as mid-September rolls around, I want to be in a good place. I want to be carrying forward energy and momentum, because I feel like in the midst of runs of busy games, they feel far less difficult when you're winning games and you're playing well and you're scoring goals. And I think this team's got a lot of energy and a lot of momentum at the moment.
Talked to Tanny yesterday, and he said that you guys, when he came back from the Gold Cup, it changed how the two up front worked together a little bit. Was tonight sort of an example of how you want that to look, with one of them sort of as a 10 and one as a striker?
It was, and for obvious reasons, we're not going to play Tanny off the side in the same way that we would Rob or Sam Shishoa or Joaquin. He's got a very different set of characteristics, and we want to make sure that he plays that role to his strengths and that we tailor-make it for him. And I think largely we've done a good job of that over my time here, looking at what players do very, very well and trying to mould the team to make sure that we see them in their most optimal conditions as often as possible, and that the players' qualities multiply one another. And I feel like Tanny and Kelvin have, over the course of the last 2 games, done a really, really good job of playing to their strengths, but also doing what the team needs them to do. And I think Tanny is a phenomenal defensive forward, as good as I've arguably seen. And I think that the work that he does for us off the ball is really, really important. But tonight you've also seen very high levels of quality, a real relentlessness in terms of how he attacks the back line. And I think he is one of the more difficult forwards to deal with in this league. And I think when you add that to Kelvin, and Kelvin had a really good night, he certainly looked back to his old self in terms of aggression, mobility, athleticism, and a real desire to score and to make things happen, and the dynamism. So they had a great night, and I think those behind them largely did a good job in giving the ball in good circumstances, first 10 minutes aside, say.
Yeah, I mean, just one defeat now since May 15th. When you looked at last summer, and we were talking about it afterwards, you were always saying you learned a lot over the summer and it helped with the evolution of the team. Now that you're having so much success, I'm just curious, what are you learning about your team in the midst of this?
Yeah, I think it was more to do with, it's certainly first and foremost, the learning was to do with how the league works. And I think that period last year in the summer wasn't one that I would have been able to foresee, even if I'd known or in more intricate detail some of the workings of MLS. I think we had a perfect storm last June, and we really suffered. But I think when I say learning, I mean in that sense, but also I mean in the sense of me handling a difficult situation that was in some ways a really important start to my career as a head coach, because there was understanding around those circumstances. Everyone knew the extent of the mitigating factors, but it was also something that I had to deal with along with the staff and the group of players. So I think it stood us in good stead. And then when we came back after that period, we showed a real desperation to put it right, and we went on a phenomenal run, which has largely continued. I would be amazed if over the course of the back end of last season and this season we weren't the form team across the two divisions, or certainly one of them. So I feel like we've carried momentum, energy, playing style, identity, real clarity in terms of what we're trying to do, and also adding players to the system that suit us really well. So I think tonight was a good showing of that, but it's also reflective of probably where we are, that we've still got a way to go, and I think that's an exciting thing, because if there's improvement to that, then we'll be in a good place.
Right before the third goal in the first half, there was a moment where Julian could have continued with the counterattack, and instead he sort of pulled the ball back, and your team ended up passing down the field like Invincibles era Arsenal or something like that. Is that what you've been talking about in terms of striking the balance between going quickly and pulling back?
Exactly. It's exactly that, and that's we've shown a lot of those moments over the course of the last month or so, and I think that's where a big improvement has come from. And Julian obviously does a very good job on that side. He's a player with real composure, and we want to strike that balance between being a team that can counter-attack with real speed, but also it not being all or nothing. We don't want it to be counter-attack and chance or ball turnover. We want to start making a good or a better fist of striking that balance well, moving the team up in a more connected way. And I think we're always going to trade off on absolute possession numbers because of how we use set plays. So I don't read too much into 38%, 45%, 50%. It's more in those phases of organised possession, how we use the ball. And I think if we have more moments like that, then we will be a team that's very difficult to play against, because we'll not only have the counter-attacking threat, the threat on set plays, the defensive organisation, but in general play we'll be able to have more control of the game, and the team will be more together. And I think you saw that fairly well tonight.
Not often you see the magic spray on a throw-in, and you had a good vantage point for that sequence as well. Were you surprised to see teams starting to try to kind of adjust to the long throws?
Yeah, I think to an extent teams are going to have to find novel ways to dealing with some of the stuff that we throw at teams on set plays, and I think we've got a nice balance at the moment between, we've got a framework for each of the situations, we've got some variety within those, we're fairly unpredictable, but at the heart of it we've got real conviction and a real desperation to score. So to an extent the opposition of course know what's coming. I can't imagine that they've talked about lots else over the course of just a 2-day preparation, but still it's very difficult to stop, and I think the players and the coaching staff do a really good job in that sense, and that belief and that momentum is really difficult to stop.
Why is it so difficult to stop? Everybody knows it's coming, and this week there's been a ton of attention around the set pieces.
Yeah, and in some senses, I'm sure that helps. I think it's a dressing room that is could not have more belief in those moments, and. As I've talked about, I want to be a team that squeezes the most out of every advantage, not just set plays, but I think our whole playing style is geared toward that, of making sure that we control as much as we can control, and we give the opposition as many headaches as we can possibly can. And I feel like we've had enough success since Leagues Cup last year for the players to have unwavering belief in one another and our approach in those situations. So again, I think we've got that nice balance of variety, but we've got a framework, we've got principles that players work towards, and they do it with absolute conviction. I mean, it could be the most detailed thing in the world, but unless they fill it with real life and real intensity and a real desperation to score, it makes you don't make the same mark on the opposition. Tonight we've shown what we can do at our absolute best, I would say.
Checking the scoreboard now, but last I saw, it looks like Vancouver is going to lose to Colorado tonight 3-0 as 63rd minute. Second in the conference right now. Field pretty just to be up that high?
I think so. I think we've sustained form over a difficult period. I really wanted to make sure that we kept our heads above water in June, and obviously we weren't in the same situation we were in last year, but it wasn't dissimilar. We lost some key players and we had some difficult games, and we managed those games really, really well. I wanted to make sure that at the end of this 5-game block that we are keeping pace at the top. Whether we're top, second or third, I think as long as we're in touching distance, I feel like we can finish this year really, really well. I think we've got a lot of margin to improve. I feel like we have the potential to do what we did last year. I feel the players have got a lot of belief, and it's a really exciting thing to be a part of, and I feel like everyone connected to the group can sense the energy and the real belief that we can win every game and beat everyone in front of us.
So tell me again, after a 4-1 win, what you're frustrated with, like you said at the start?
Yeah, no, I think we're so early in the season still. We want to be really conscious of getting ahead of ourselves, because that is, and it's maybe difficult to believe, but you feel like there's stages of that game where it could have got away from us. And I think to become a very, very, very undisputed contender at the top of this table and across the two conferences, we've got to make sure that we are perfect for longer in games. So yeah, we're still at the stage where I want to talk about evolving and pushing the team to get better, and it's that type of group, and I've always said that they're a really coachable group. So I think whilst there's margin for improvement, I want to make sure we talk about that a lot. Good. Thanks, guys.